The Star Sport podcast is brought to you in association with Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union now offers Cultivate Farm Finance and is ready to support local farmers. Cultivate is a farm finance option available from 40 credit unions around Ireland, including Access and Bantry credit unions here in West Cork. With a Cultivate loan, farmers in West Cork can benefit from the local decision-making and personal service offered by their credit union. To find out more, go to www.accesscu.ie/cultivate or call on 028 21 883. Cultivate is a loan specifically designed for farmers that provides short to medium term loan opportunities built specifically around the growing needs of our farming members.
Close your eyes and pull like a dog.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Hello and welcome to the Star Sport podcast. My name is Jack McCarran of the Southern Star, and I'm joined as always by Star Sport editor Kieran McCarthy. Before we kick things off, I'd just like to give a gentle reminder to our listeners and viewers to please rate, review and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify and YouTube. The Star Sport podcast is brought to you in association with our friends at Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, where your bank really does matter. Choose the credit union, choose local, choose community. Our guest today is the new Beara GAA divisional manager, Andrew Fitzgerald. Andrew, who is originally from the Spa GAA club in Killarney, is well known in both Kerry GAA and basketball circles and comes to Beara with an excellent reputation. Later in the show, we'll reflect on a marvellous weekend for West Cork athletes at the National Indoor Championships. But Kieran, we have to start this week's podcast with a discussion about another Cork football loss, this time to Galway at Páirc Uí Chaoimh. You were at the Páirc on Saturday evening, so what were your own main takeaways? Did the first half performance give you a sense that this Cork side are maybe, possibly, perhaps starting to turn a corner?
There were seeds for optimism in that first half performance. In the end, it turned out like we thought it would. Galway got the win and the 2 points, and it's left Cork with 1 point after 4 games and really embroiled, engulfed in a relegation battle. But there was that first half, it was 1-12 apiece at half time, and it was a good performance by Cork, in fairness. You always had the sense that Galway had another couple of gears to go up. I just had that sense during the game. I remember saying it to one of the reporters beside me that it feels like if Galway want to step on the gas here, they can. And they did in the second half. And I think they won, was it 3-22 or 3-23 to 2-17. And one of Cork's goals came right at the death as well to almost put a better gloss on the score. But it was a better Cork performance. But then when you look at the score, like it was almost too high scoring. We don't see those games in the football championship. It was almost like a challenge game at times, like the opening of a field and 2 teams going out at it. Like that's not almost what you're going to. You won't see that in the championship. Like the teams will tighten up an awful lot. That's why it almost was an unrealistic league match in that way. But Galway had the scoring power. Like Shane Walsh, my God, that man at number 11 was just sensational. And they got 2-7. His second goal, he was like Speedy Gonzalez flying through the Cork defence, and what a finish as well. He was incredible. But there was bright spots for Cork. I think Stephen Sherlock finished with 10 points. We spoke before about what would happen or who could help take some of the scoring pressure off Brian Hurley. And it was good to see Stephen Sherlock stand up, and he got a couple of good scores. Blake Murphy got a great goal early on. Cork played more on the front foot too. They put up 217, which was by far their biggest score in the league so far. But they need to get the balance right. Cork are far too open. Like to cough up 3-23 is just way too much. So it leaves them going into this final 3 games needing, I'd say, at least 2 wins to avoid relegation to Division 3.
Kieran, talk to me a little bit more then about Stephen Sherlock's performance, because as you mentioned, 10 points, 6 from frees, and the prospect of him and Brian Hurley lining up together at some stage this season is a tantalising one, and would surely strike fear into the defenders of the opposition from any other county.
Yeah, it was brilliant to see Sherlock kind of take that club form that he showed with the Bears last year and take that to inter-county level, because Sherlock is still unproven at inter-county level. We know Brian Hurley's been there, done that. He has the T-shirt. he was missing against Galway the last night because he had a shoulder injury that he picked up against Derry. So Keith Ricken told us afterwards that they erred on the side of caution and decided to rest Brian Hurley, even though the Castlehaven men would have wanted to play that game. But it was probably better off just saving him just in case you kind of antagonise that shoulder injury. But Sherlock stepped up. He got 10 points, like we said, 6 from frees, but some lovely points from play as well. And just for Cork to have that extra scored option up front, it just takes some of the pressure off Hurley. And it also gives the opposition more of a headache instead of, or more problems to try and solve. Instead of just focusing on Brian Hurley, if you have Sherlock and Hurley up there together, there's 2 danger men, and that can only be good for Cork. Like I said, Blake Murphy got an early goal and he finished with 1-2. He got 3 points in the first half against Clare. So he's shown in flashes that he's something about him at intercounty level, and that's good as well because Cork needs scoring options. But it's at the other end, I think, where that'll concern Keith Ricken, like I said, conceding 3-22. And what's more, Sean Meehan went off injured against Galway the last day. It looked like a hamstring injury, but I can't confirm that. And Keith Ricken did confirm afterwards that Sean Powter will miss the next 3 league games with a hamstring injury. And Keith Ricken said it was a significant enough injury. And that's just a huge blow to Sean Powter first, because that man has been through some torturous time with hamstring injuries. But it's a big blow for Cork too, because Sean Powter is such a key player for this Cork football team. And we all want to see a fit and flying Sean Powter playing for Cork, but he's going to be missing for the next 3 games. And they're the 3 games that will decide Cork's Division 2 fate. They're going to be away to struggling Meath next, then home to struggling Down, then away to struggling Offaly. So it's almost this mini series of games coming up where Cork are going to play the other 3 teams that are around them in that relegation dogfight. So in one sense, it's good that Cork have played the top teams. They've played Roscommon, Clare, Derry and Galway, and they've got 1 point out of those 4, but they can park those games to the side now, because it's all about the next 3 games, and it's against teams that are around them, both on the board and almost in terms of ability on the football field this season. So that gives Cork a better chance of picking up the wins that they will need.
And just to put your mathematician's hat on then for a second, can you work out what exactly will Cork need to ensure they don't get dragged into a relegation situation? What do they need to guarantee their survival? Will 2 wins from those 3 games be enough to guarantee, or are they going to need at least 2 wins and a draw? You crunch the numbers for us, Kieran. You do this kind of stuff off the top of your head very quickly. I know, I can see it in your eyes. You're ready to give me the answer that I want.
Yes, I have to put me on the spot now, but I can say that at least Cork's destiny is in their own hands. Like I said, they're playing teams around them, so they know what they need to do. Ideally, if they get 3 wins, they'll be on 7 points and they will be safe in. But I think almost 2 wins could be enough, because they're playing teams that are around them. Meath and Offaly drew last Saturday. We got a late goal to draw that game, and I was trying to think, is that good or bad news for Cork? Because what was my thinking beforehand is that Offaly could be cut adrift by the time Cork played them in their last game. So it's almost not a dead rubber, but it could be a game that Cork could earmark for a win. The Down game in Páirc Uí Chaoimh March 20th is huge. It's so big. Like, Cork have to win that game. It's their last home game. They'll have to beat Down. Going to wait up to Navan next to take on Meath. That's on 2 weeks' time. That's, again, if Cork can get something from that game. But I think if Cork can get 4 points from their next 6, that could put them on 5 points. That could be enough. But it's that old answer again. It depends on results anywhere. But I think 2 Cork wins out of the next 3 will put them in a strong position, because they have that point they got against Clare. So at least 2 wins. Otherwise, Cork will be down in Division 3. Then that opens up the conversation about the Tailteann Cup. That Cork won't be in the All-Ireland Senior Championship for the Sam Maguire, unless then they beat Kerry in the Munster Senior Championship semi-final, which I think we'll all agree here would be a huge shock. So as well as keep their Division 2 status, which Keith Ricken said afterwards is quite important, Cork need to keep that status too if they want to compete in the Sam Maguire Cup this year. So there's a lot on the line in the next couple of weeks.
So what you're saying to me is a win in a week and a bit's time at Páirc Tailteann will be key to avoiding relegation to the Tailteann Cup. So we leave the discussion about Cork and all things Tailteann there for now, or Cork men's there for now, because the women's side have a crucial league game this weekend as well. On Sunday, they host Waterford at Cork IT. Shane Renane's team have lost their opening 2 rounds of the league against last year's All-Ireland finalists Meath and Dublin. So Kieran, they'll be really hopeful of picking up their first win of the season on Sunday.
If this game was played on paper, you'd say this is a game that Cork will win, but we know the games aren't. It isn't that straightforward. But this is a game that Cork need to win, and it's a game that Cork should win. I know they're disappointed with their performance against Dublin last time out, when Cork just weren't at the races at all. And new boss Shane Renane said as much afterwards, that the work ethic just wasn't there. And he said that the team performance bordered on embarrassing at times. So he'll be hoping for a big reaction from Cork. They're home this Sunday. They're home against a Waterford team that they've beaten over the last couple of years when they've played them. Because there's a lot on the line for both teams. Both have lost their opening 2 league games to Meath and Dublin. And the loser of this game will go into the Division 1 relegation playoff. And it's just it's a scenario or situation that Cork do not want to find themselves in. But this is a chance for Shane Renane to see what his team is made of. It's a very kind of early season gut check. They have home advantage. There's some really, really good players in their ranks. I'm not sure what or how many more Navy players will be back in this Sunday, if any. But Cork still have enough good players in their ranks without the more Navy contingent to get the win that they need. And if they do that, they can just tick that box with the league. The league is over. Okay, didn't get to the semi-finals, but didn't get relegated. And then it's all about preparing for the championship.
And Kieran, that game is, of course, going to be played on Sunday at 2 p.m. at Cork IT or MTU or whatever they're calling their GAA facility there at the minute. Maybe you could clarify that for me, because I don't 100% know, but it's
MTU.
Yeah, MTU. So the GAA facility at MTU will play host to Cork versus Waterford on Sunday at 2 p.m. and we'll have full previews and coverage in this and next week's Southern Star of that one. Now, our guest this week is the new Beara GAA divisional manager Andrew Fitzgerald, a Kerry man with plenty of experience coaching in both football and basketball. And Kieran, I know you know a bit about Andrew from his time involved in basketball in Kerry. So before we hear from the man himself, you might just give us a bit of background on him.
So Andrew Fitzgerald, like you said earlier, is from the Spa GAA club, which is just outside Killarney town. But Andrew will be better known for his basketball background with St. Paul's and Killarney Cougars, and he's a player and a coach. And I think it's quite interesting that with Andrew's strong basketball background, how that'll manifest itself in football. He's also involved with Sneem Derrynan in South Kerry. They're a football club there, so he's manager there as well. And he'll talk about it soon in our chat, how he implements almost a basketball thinking and tactics into football. So I think it's a quite exciting appointment for Beara, because it's come out of nowhere. It's quite left field. They've gone for a very different option to almost revitalise and reinvigorate Beara football. Because if we're being quite honest, over the last couple of years, Beara football, like all divisions, well, maybe not all divisions, like a couple of divisions, just hasn't been going as well as possibly it could or should be. So the fact that Andrew Fitzgerald, he's a new voice, he's coming into Beara. What might help as well is that he's an outsider as such. So he's no affiliation or to any of the 6 clubs in Beara. So he's coming in fresh voice, new ideas, no preconceptions about clubs, players, or so on. So that I think that will work to his advantage. What he'll need is a buy-in. He need a buy-in from the clubs. He need a buy-in from the players to get Beara football back up and running. But I think it's an exciting appointment. It'll be just to see how it works out now. We were chatting before we recorded the interview, and he was telling me almost about his philosophy, where he likes every player at the training session to have a football. He's very much into that. He's not a fan of going to football training session where there's only 5 footballs there. He wants 30, 35 footballs there, so each player has a ball. So he's very much into that aspect. So it's going to be it's a deviation from the norm for Beara. They've gone outside. It's almost a special year for Beara too, because it's 25 years since they won their last Cork senior football title back in 1997, and that was a hell of a Beara football team. Beara is always known as football country. There's no hurling as such in Beara. This is football territory. There's some good young footballers coming up as well. The Beara Miners won the Rebel Oak Premier 1 minor championship last December. So there's talent in the division. It's just about harnessing that. And I think that will be Andrew Fitzgerald's big challenge to get the best out of Beara. And it'll be interesting to see how he gets on. But as you'll hear from him now, he's very excited about his new challenge.
We're joined now on the Star Sport podcast by the new manager of the Beara senior divisional football team, Andrew Fitzgerald, to chat about his exciting new role and also tell us a small bit about himself. First off, Andrew, congrats on the new job. How did this whole role come about to take over as manager of the Beara senior football team?
I suppose really it was a chance meeting with some of the backroom team of the Beara Peninsula and Alan Devan from Portmagee. Alan has been involved for many years training teams, and I suppose he brings a really professional setup and an organisation to every team he's been with. So I suppose Alan got me involved with them, and I suppose Alan is just after having a new baby girl, Grace. So he's going to more or less take a back seat and let me take the reins for the moment.
It's a fierce, exciting opportunity given the tradition and history of Beara football. But before we chat about them, tell us a small bit about yourself and your background in football and sport in general.
Well, I suppose, Kieran, my own club is Spa in Killarney, and I would have played for many years with Spa and East Kerry as well, years ago now. But I suppose this year I'm managing the SNEAM Darragh GAA club, and that's been exciting, and I suppose the response has been excellent. But over the years, I've been involved with different Spa teams and East Kerry teams in a management capacity, and I suppose this is really an exciting new role, and I'm really looking forward to it.
I suppose I know you well, Andrew, from your basketball exploits in Killarney, and you've a reputation in terms of basketball, and now you're kind of veering into the football side of things too. But from basketball to football, what can you take from your basketball background that you can use in football?
Well, I suppose in recent years it's really come to prominence, I suppose, with a lot of high-profile GAA players also being really good basketball players. But I suppose traditionally at Gaelic football trainings, it was the concept of running around the field and having two footballs, whereas in basketball, it's always been a more tactical approach, and everybody has a ball in hand. So you're really working on your fine motor skills all the time. And I suppose the footwork from basketball, the defensive setups from basketball, I think we see more and more in the GAA, especially zone pressing kickouts. And I suppose with regard to the way the defenses are setting up as well, I suppose we even see it Kerry now, but the northern teams have been a bit at the head of the curve with that for many years, and they implement a lot of, I suppose, what would be basic setups in basketball, where you're double teaming the ball and sending help from the weak side and stuff. And I suppose with the evolution of the kick out in the GAA as well, you see a lot more screening off the ball and creating channels of space for players to get open. So I suppose that's a big crossover from the basketball world. And I suppose none more so than you'd see with the Dublin GAA. They involved Mark Ingle, who was an international basketball coach for many years, and Jason Sherlock in their backroom team. And I suppose that was really evident in their setup on the kickouts in the past few years.
So there obviously is, like you said, there is a big overlap between basketball and football. So turning now to your new role as well with the Beara senior football management team, like we said, it's a division with a proud history when it comes to football. It's won the Cork Senior Football Championship 6 times. The last was back in 1997. And if we're being honest, I suppose it's been kind of slim pickings in recent years. So heading into this job, what's your expectation and target for the season ahead, Andrew?
I suppose the big thing is to bring a setup that the players will be happy to be involved with and excited to be involved with. I suppose my big thing with every club I've been involved with is player development and trying to help every player become the best player he can possibly be. So it's not setting out the stall to say we'll win this or we'll win that. It's about each player saying, I'm going to become the best player I can possibly be, and putting the structures in place that allow that to happen. I suppose with regard to Beara, I suppose just from what I know the last few years, I know they've had a good few Cork minors, and even last year they won the Cork minor championship at the top grade. Mm-hmm. So I suppose that is all promising for the future, but I think it's really important to have the top or the best structures in place for those players to play at the top level. And I suppose having this Beara divisional side gives that opportunity. But I suppose on the downside of that, it's probably a little bit geographically challenged, where a lot of the players are working away and find it hard to probably even make their own club games, let alone commit to a divisional side, which obviously will take a lot of commitment at that standard.
You mentioned there about the Beara minors last year. Yeah, they won the Rebelo County Premier 1 minor football title, which was a huge win for Beara football. And afterwards, Kieran O'Sullivan, who was involved in the team and a former Cork footballer, he said, this has put Beara football back on the map again. And even ongoing right now, the Beara Community School senior football team is through to the All-Ireland school semi-final at their level, which I think is D level, which is good for the school too, because and good for Beara football, because it's a lot of young lads around Beara getting the chance to test themselves. I think they're playing the Ulster champions quite soon. But what you touched on there, Andrew, it's just to have the structure for those young fellas to come into and then develop.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you mentioned there with the school team, I think it's important to remember as well, like that the Beara Peninsula might be a big place, but there's only one secondary school in the peninsula, which is an indication of the population there. They are challenged with I suppose population and stuff, and they don't have the same pick as the I suppose industrial areas closer to the city and stuff. But like you said there, I suppose what I suppose I see my role is bringing the opportunity for the players to develop their individual skills and as part of a team playing in a structure the same as the other top divisional sides are playing.
And you mentioned earlier too, Andrew, that you were involved in the East Kerry divisional team across the county bounds in Kerry. So you have knowledge of the workings of a divisional team, and like obviously Beara are a divisional team as well. So in terms of organising trainings and getting them together, you know how difficult that is around clubs, so you're kind of well aware of the challenges that lie ahead for you and your management team.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose I was with the East Kerry minor team that won the county championship 2014, and while we had a fantastic group of players, I suppose the big thing was getting those players to gel together, and I suppose establish the roles within that team. I suppose because they're obviously going to be different to the roles that they have established with their clubs, where they're probably used to being on the ball a lot more or whatever, and we're asking them to do something different. And I suppose looking from the outside, watching the East Kerry team the last couple of years, that was very strong as well. But I suppose the big challenge for that management was also getting those players to work as part of a system that's probably different to what they're used to with their clubs. And I think you see that with any divisional side that's successful. It's being able to get those players to work together as part of one system. And I think you've seen it last year with the likes of the GAA. The longer they get together, the better they get. And then I suppose the downside of that is with a lot of divisional sides, just while they have lots of talent, it does take that time to establish a system and a method of play that everyone buys into.
If you have a message to the clubs of Beara and the footballers of Beara who listen to this podcast, why should they give their support to the Beara football team this season?
Well, I suppose for every Beara player, which is obvious, it's their commitment to their club is always number one, and their pride of their area that they're from and that they play for. But I suppose the opportunity that the Beara divisional side presents is that they get the chance to play at the highest level in the Páirc Uí Championship and represent their area as the top standard of football in Cork County.
No, fantastic. What's your timeline? So when do you hope to, I suppose, get started, put the feet on the ground in Beara and get this exciting new chapter underway?
Well, to be fair, Joey and Mike from the divisional board have been absolutely amazing, and they're building up correspondence with the clubs in Beara to make sure that everything will run smoothly and that won't clash with club games and club trainings, and basically that players will be available as much as possible for what we're trying to do. I suppose one other big advantage that Beara has is that it's a football dominant part of the county, and hurling doesn't seem to feature as strongly, so that'll give us an opportunity maybe to prepare the way we want to.
Oh, it's a very exciting times ahead, Andrew, for Beara football. I just want to wish you best of luck for the season ahead.
Thanks very much, Kieran, and looking forward to chatting again soon.
Delighted to be joined by Avril Condell of Access Credit Union, who's here to tell us a little bit about Cultivate Farm Finance. So Avril, maybe just give us a brief introduction to what Cultivate Farm Finance actually is.
So Cultivate is a collaboration of 40 credit unions throughout Ireland. West Cork has both Access Credit Union and Bantry Credit Union. The loan itself is up to 75,000 unsecured for 7 years is the max term, but obviously can be personalised and customised to each individual's needs. It's a great facility actually for farmers because it covers cash flow, machinery purchases, like there's a fertiliser crisis now, as we know. So literally anything that is required for the farm can be covered by this loan. The rate is very competitive. We can match the repayment term and the repayment frequency to each individual farmer depending on their enterprise. And you also have the benefit of the life cover that comes with the credit union loan, which I think is very important for people these days at no extra cost.
And if I'm a farmer and I'm listening to you on this podcast today, how can I get involved?
So if you're not sure of which credit union you're involved with, you can go to Cultivate Credit Union directly, which is www.cultivate-cu.ie, or you can phone 1800 839 999. And if Access is your credit union, you can contact me directly. So it's avril@accesscu.ie, or you can ring me on 085 268 2727.
3 West Cork athletes brought gold home after the National Athletics Indoor Championships. Over the weekend, on Sunday, Ballineen Bullet Phil Healy of Bandon Athletics Club was at her supreme best as she won her 15th national title. On Saturday, Darren Mcelhinney raced to his first senior national indoor title with a commanding win in the 3,000 metres, and Bandon Athletic Club's Shane Howard powered to gold in the men's long jump on Saturday. Kieran, a fantastic, memorable, historic weekend for West Cork Athletics.
Another golden weekend for West Cork Athletics. And if you saw the front page of last week's Southern Star, we went with the headline, "Going for Gold," and our local athletes delivered. So we looked at Shane Howard first, Bandon Athletic Club, long jump, and he won his second indoor national title last weekend. His first was back in 2019. His fifth jump last Saturday of 7 meters 47 centimeters was enough to land the 27-year-old his latest Irish senior title, because he's also previously won the outdoor gold as well. So that was gold number 1 for Cork. And then Darren Mcelhinney, a friend of the show, we only had him on last week. He was the favourite going into the men's 3,000 metres last Saturday, and he delivered. It was almost billed as a showdown between himself and Nicholas Griggs. He's a 17-year-old up-and-comer, but Darragh just showed his class here. Like, he had a comfortable win. He won in 8:02, I think it was, which is almost 17 seconds outside his PB that he set in France a couple of weeks ago. So even though the time wasn't what he hoped it would be, I was chatting to him on Monday, and he was saying that he ran his last kilometre in 2:26, and that's almost what he wanted, because he's going to the World Indoors in Belgrade in the middle of this month, in the middle of March. And he said to get through the heat and advance through the rounds, you have to be looking at doing the last kilometre in 2:25, 2:26. So he did it in 2:26, and he felt even then that he had the room to go even a tiny bit faster. So I think he got what he wanted out of the senior national indoors, because he carried a tag of favourite, and it rested almost effortlessly on his shoulders. He won his first senior national indoor title, and he ran that fast last kilometre. So he'll be pretty happy going into the World Indoors. And just a note too for his brother Owen, who in the race beforehand won the men's 2,000 metre B final, and Owen runs for Bantry Athletic Club. So it was a Mcelhinney double in the men's 2,000 metres at the national indoors last weekend. And then the attention switched to Sunday and the women's 400 metre final, where Phil Healy was the favourite. She breezed through her heat on Saturday, and she looked supreme, and she was just class personified again in the final as well. And she set a championship record. I think it was 51.75 seconds, which is only 100 of a second outside her PB that she set recently as well. So national title number 15 for Phil between indoors and outdoors, and it was her 7th national indoor title, which is an incredible when you consider that she's racked up that many national titles. And Phil too will be in action at the World Indoor Athletics Championships in Belgrade in a couple of weeks' time. But first, she'll be in action at the World Tour event in Madrid on Wednesday night of this week, and that's in another top class field. So there's real promise there that she'll run another fast time. And it's just worth noting too, Jack, that all of Phil Healy's 400-meter runs this year have been sub 52 seconds. So she's really been consistently brilliant here, race after race after race. And she's not too far off the Irish 400-meter women's indoor record. I think she's only 0.16 of a second. So hopefully over the next couple of weeks, we can see Phil break that barrier. But yeah, great weekend for West Cork athletes.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. And congratulations to all the clubs involved as well. Kieran, one last story before we preview this week's Southern Star, and that is Liverpool's Carabao Cup final victory over Chelsea at Wembley on Sunday. And of course, we found a West Cork connection to this story too. Well, we found a West Cork connection to this story probably last year at some point, but you've revived it for this week's paper because Dunmanway are on top of the world again.
There's a West Cork link to almost every story. I've been saying that for years now, and no one's been listening. But maybe they'll listen now, Jack. Maybe they'll listen now because Caoimhín Kelleher, the Liverpool Cup-winning goalkeeper, scored the winning spot kick. As it turned out, he's very strong links to Dunmanway. His father, the late Ray Kelleher, and his grandfather Timothy Kelleher, both of Dunmanway stock, and even his father Ray played with the Dawnies, and he won a West Cork minor football title back in 1978. Dawnies beat Bantry, and then in 1993 Ray was part of the Dawn. He was the coach of the Dawnies team that won the county junior A, and then 2 years later Ray was coach of the Dawnies team that won the county intermediate title, and Ray was also, I think, a coach of the senior Dawnies team even back, I think it's even 2012, I think it was. So he's very much Ray Kelleher, a Dawnies GAA legend. So I think everyone around Dawnies and Dunmanway is kind of delighted to see Caoimhín Kelleher's rise to the ranks, and interesting to see that Jurgen Klopp hailed him as the best number 2 goalkeeper in the world. I think Caoimhín, he was brilliant the last day. Scored, kept a clean sheet in normal time, scored the winning penalty. But then look at the job he has on his hands to try and knock Allison off that number 1 perch. That's not an easy job at all. But that's probably his challenge in the short and long term. But for now, he can bask in the glory of being Liverpool's cup-winning hero, and there's a good West Cork link there.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I was him, I don't think I'd be in a massive rush out of Liverpool just yet, because you can imagine training day in, day out with Alisson, who's arguably the best goalkeeper in the world at the minute, is only going to help his development. And then maybe as he moves into his mid to late 20s, he might see an opportunity to move elsewhere in the Premier League, or maybe Alisson will get tired of the cold of the northwest of England and want to move to sunnier climes, as most South Americans do after they spend 5 or 6 years in England. So the number 1 spot could open up for him if he sticks around long enough. Who knows? But regardless, a fantastic penalty to finish it off, and just thank his lucky stars that it was Kepa in goal against him and not Mendy, because I think Mendy would have saved some of those Liverpool penalties, but Kepa was acting the maggot, and Liverpool got the better of him on every single occasion. Kieran, before we preview this week's paper, do you want to just jump in there?
Yeah, isn't it great to see how that backfired on Chelsea in one sense?
Brilliant.
It's Kepa, you could see he was full of the joys of life coming on, and he looked like a man who meant business. And of course, okay, he's a good penalty record, and he was trying he's been a hijinks with the penalties, and then he didn't save any, and then he missed a crucial one. And I think that ball is probably still travelling through the air as we speak. So he almost got his comeuppance in one sense, and it was just very ironic that Chelsea made that move, and it just backfired spectacularly.
Even the penalty he took himself, he took it so lackadaisical. It was like one of the situations you'd see in an international rugby game where Ireland score under the posts and Johnny Sexton takes his penalty and he just barely sets it up, nowhere on him, just kind of clips it over the bar because there's no need for the big song and the dance. He just knows it's an easy kick. That's almost what it looked like Kepa was doing. Just set the ball down, clipped it over the bar, take the 2 points and set back up for the restart. But the problem was it was a penalty shootout in soccer, not a conversion in rugby. So no use for Kepa and no use for Chelsea. And Mendy must have been raging, because I don't know if you watched the African Cup of Nations final a few weeks ago between Egypt and Senegal, and Mendy was brilliant in the shootout. I think he saved 3 of Egypt's penalties, and then 3 weeks later he's taken off in those circumstances. Tuchel must have made a promise to Kepa that if it went to penalties he'd bring him on, but I'm sure he's regretting it now. But anyway, that's enough about Kepa Arrizabalaga, or however he says his name. I can't quite pronounce it. Let's preview this week's Southern Star sports section. Kieran, what can readers expect?
I'm going to stick with soccer for a second, and we mentioned Caoimhin Keller and he's linked to Dunmanway. It was a good weekend for Dunmanway Town in the Beamish Cup. They kept their bid for the 3 in a row alive, but it went all the way to penalties before they beat Trina Rangers. This was a heavyweight battle of the round. It was 3-3 after normal time and extra time, and then Dunmanway won 6-5 on penalties. And I think their goalkeeper was the hero of the hour there. So well done to Dunmanway. And we've had full roundup of the Beamish Cup action in this weekend, this Thursday, Southern Star. And also the Trina Rangers women, we mentioned them last week. They were the first ever women's team from the West Cork League in action in the Munster Women's Junior Cup, and they went and won, and they're through to the next round. They won on penalties after extra time. It finished 1-1 after extra time. So congrats to the Trina Rangers women. It's onwards and upwards for them. There's a lot of GAA in this week's Southern Star. Of course, we've all the inter-county action. The Hurlers' great win against Limerick. They're going to now as favourites for the league crown, and you can see why. That was a really impressive performance by the Cork Hurlers. We'd have followed from the Cork footballers' loss to Galway. We have a report and reaction from Cork Camogie. They beat a hockey Limerick in the match at Páirc Uí Chaoimh last Saturday, and that was before the Cork footballers. I don't think that game was of much use to either Cork or Limerick, because Cork put up 5 goals in the first half. I think they were nearly 20 points up at half time. So you always have to ask questions of what about the Limerick team up in Division 1. But sticking with local GAA, I have an interview with Gino Driscoll. He's the Tide McCorrick manager, where we're just looking at the junior season ahead, because there's a new Premier Junior football grade coming on stream in 2023. And it just means that this year's Carabao Junior A Football Championship carries a huge prize, where the winner this year wins promotion to the new county grade in 2023. So there's a huge reward for this year's Carabao Junior A football winner. So Gene talks about that, but he also hits out at the fact that we're now in March and we still don't know what the Carabao Junior A Football Championship will look like. There's a hold up at the moment of whether it's going to be the group stage format of 16 teams, or will it be the 21 team knockout like we've had the last couple of years. Hopefully there'll be white smoke over the next couple of weeks and we'll finally find out. But he's making a point. It's now March. We're trying to prepare for a championship that we don't know what it's going to look like. We don't know when the games will be played. He also questions that there's 21 teams in the Carabao Junior football. And he said that's too many because some teams don't deserve to be there. And he's right. So it's a good interview with Gino Driscoll. We also have great news as well from Cultivate Farm Finance Club, who are going to field underage ladies football teams for the very first time. They opened their new state-of-the-art gym last Friday night. So good times for Killarney on and off the pitch. So that's there. And we've a lot more as well. So as you can see, Jack, plenty to sink your teeth into in Thursday Southern Star.
Yeah, brilliant stuff, Kieran. And if you can't make it to the shops to pick up a hard copy of Thursday's Southern Star, you can always go online and subscribe. Just go to www.southernstar.ie/e-paper and read the Southern Star on your computer, tablet or smartphone for less than €2 per week. What an absolute bargain. Thanks for listening to the Star Sport podcast. We'll be back at the same time next week. If you enjoy these shows, please make sure to rate, review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Slán Tamil.